Most people assume that diabetes is something you find out about in a lab. You go in for a checkup, your doctor orders blood work, and a few days later, you get a call. That is how most people expect it to happen. But here is what 22 years of clinical practice has taught me. Your body does not wait for a blood test to start sending warnings. It starts communicating long before any number on a lab report turns abnormal. And the place it speaks first, the place it raises its hand and says something is wrong, is somewhere most people never think to examine carefully: their own feet. A few months ago, a patient came in because his wife had noticed he was limping slightly and insisted he get checked. He felt fine, he told me. Maybe a little tired. His feet had been bothering him a bit. Before I ordered a single test, I sat with him and asked him a very specific set of questions about his feet. He answered yes to 5 of the 9 things I'm going to walk you through today. His fasting blood glucose came back at 228. He had been diabetic for close to 2 years without knowing it. The American Diabetes Association estimates that more than 8 million Americans are currently living with undiagnosed diabetes. 8 million people whose bodies are accumulating damage right now: nerve damage, blood vessel damage, organ damage, and who have no idea because nobody told them what to look for before the lab work came back. What I am about to show you costs nothing to check. You do not need a machine or a prescription. You need 30 seconds, enough light to see by, and the knowledge of what you are looking at. The first sign is one that almost every person has experienced and immediately explained away with something completely logical: a tingling in the feet, a numbness, that pins and needles sensation that crawls up from the sole or settles into the toes. Almost every person gives me the same answer within 2 seconds: my leg was crossed. I was sitting in an awkward position. My foot fell asleep. And sometimes that is exactly right. But there is a question I always follow up with. Is this happening when you have not been sitting in any unusual position? Does it come on at random, without a clear mechanical reason? Does it come back regularly? Because if the answer is yes, we are no longer talking about positional compression. We are talking about something happening at the nerve level. When blood sugar is elevated over a long period of time, excess glucose in the bloodstream begins to damage the protective coating around your peripheral nerves. These are the nerves that run from your spinal cord all the way down to your toes, the longest nerve pathways in your body, which is exactly why the feet are always the first place affected. Think of your nerves as electrical cables. Every cable has a plastic insulation layer wrapped around it. That insulation is what allows the electrical signal to travel cleanly from your brain to your foot and back again. When blood sugar stays elevated, it acts like a slow chemical corrosive on that insulation. The cable still transmits for a while, but the signal starts getting distorted, fuzzy, interrupted. That fuzziness is the tingling you feel. The American Diabetes Association has documented that peripheral neuropathy affects nearly half of all people living with diabetes. It is the single most common diabetic complication, and because it develops so slowly, most people have months of tingling before it ever registers as something worth reporting. The daily habit I recommend for this: a 20 to 30-minute walk every single day. Consistent rhythmic movement drives blood circulation down into the smallest vessels of your feet. Pair that with a real reduction in added sugar, starting with your very next meal. The second sign is the one my patients find most distressing, not because of how it feels during the day, but because of when it arrives. It waits until they are lying in bed, in the quiet, with nothing to distract them from it. A burning in the soles of the feet, sometimes in the toes. A heat sensation with no external source. I hear the same explanations consistently. I was on my feet all day. The weather has been warm, my circulation is poor, and I acknowledge all of those. But when someone tells me the burning is worst at night, when they are lying still with nothing touching their feet, I listen very carefully, because that specific pattern, burning at rest, burning in the dark, burning that wakes you up, is a clinically meaningful symptom. Here is what is happening inside the body when this occurs. The nerves in your feet have sustained enough damage from prolonged elevated blood sugar that they are no longer transmitting accurate signals. They are misfiring, sending incorrect information to the brain. Your brain receives a signal that says heat, that says burning, even though nothing hot is anywhere near your foot. The nerve itself has become unreliable. Think of a smoke detector with a damaged sensor. The house is not on fire. There is no smoke, but the sensor has been compromised and it is triggering the alarm anyway. Your nerve is doing exactly the same thing. Research published in the journal Diabetes Care identified burning foot pain as one of the earliest patient-reported symptoms in individuals who were later formally diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, appearing 1 to 3 years before diagnosis. 3 years of burning feet explained away while blood sugar climbed higher. 2 habits from this sign. First, drink a minimum of 8 glasses of water every day. Second, add fiber to every single meal. Vegetables, legumes, oats, whatever form works for you. Fiber slows the rate at which sugar enters your bloodstream after eating, which directly reduces the damage to nerves over time. The third sign is where we move from uncomfortable to genuinely dangerous. This is the sign I feel the most urgency about, because when it is missed, and it is missed constantly, the consequences are sometimes irreversible. A wound on the foot that will not heal. It usually comes up the same way. A blister from a shoe, a small cut, a scrape on the heel, something that should have been gone in a week. The person puts a bandage on it, goes about their life, and 2 weeks later, it looks the same. 3 weeks later, maybe a little worse. They keep waiting. They assume it will close. The reason it does not close is this. High blood sugar, sustained over time, causes the walls of blood vessels to thicken and stiffen. The smallest vessels, the capillaries that carry oxygen and white blood cells to the surface of the skin, are the most vulnerable. They narrow. Blood flow to the feet, which sit at the furthest point from the heart, slows dramatically. A wound needs a constant delivery of oxygen, white blood cells, and repair materials to close. When that delivery slows to a trickle, the wound sits open. And an open wound is an open door. Bacteria enter. Infection develops in tissue that is already poorly perfused and struggling to mount an immune response. The Centers for Disease Control reports that diabetic foot ulcers are the primary cause of non-traumatic lower limb amputations in the United States. Over 100,000 every year, and nearly every single one of them started as a small wound that someone waited too long to take seriously. The habit I want you to begin tonight. Examine both feet after your bath or shower. Every single day, look between every toe. Look at the heel. If you find any wound, any broken skin, any blister, clean it, apply an antiseptic, and cover it. If it has not improved meaningfully within 48 hours, contact your doctor, not the end of the week. 48 hours. The fourth sign is completely visible and has been visible in many cases for months. It is not hidden. It is not something you have to search for. And still, almost nobody connects it to blood sugar when they see it. A darkening or reddish discoloration of the skin around the ankles and lower legs. Patients describe it as sun damage, old bruising that never quite cleared. Just how my skin looks at this age. I have seen people who have been looking at this discoloration for over a year and have never once considered that it might be a circulation signal. When the blood vessels supplying the lower legs and feet are compromised by chronic high blood sugar, the skin stops receiving adequate oxygenated blood. The color changes as a reflection of what is happening in the vessels beneath it. A dark reddish or brownish discoloration indicates that the blood pooling in that area is deoxygenated. It has delivered what oxygen it had and cannot be refreshed quickly because the circulation is sluggish. In some patients, alongside the discoloration, the skin becomes thinner, almost papery. It bruises more easily. This is a sign that the tissue is being chronically undernourished at the cellular level. Your feet are the last stop on the longest route in your body. Blood leaving your heart has to travel all the way down to your toes and then fight gravity to travel all the way back up. Every other organ in your body is closer to the engine. When the roads narrow because of blood vessel damage, the end of the line is where the shortage shows up first. A study published in the Journal of the American Academy of Dermatology identified these lower extremity skin color changes as detectable, on average, approximately 18 months before a formal diabetes diagnosis is made. 18 months of visible evidence sitting on the ankles, unread. The habit here is specific. 5 minutes every morning of ankle circles, toe raises, and calf contractions. Your calves are essentially a secondary heart for your lower legs, squeezing blood back upward against gravity every time they contract. Even 5 minutes of deliberate movement in the morning meaningfully improves circulation throughout the day. The fifth sign is one that patients almost always have a prepared answer for before I even finish asking. Severely cracked heels. Not just seasonal dryness, but deep, persistent cracking that returns no matter how much moisturizer is applied, no matter what time of year it is. Every winter, I always hear, "I just have dry skin," and in many cases that is entirely true and benign. But when the cracking is severe, when it happens year-round, when nothing topical provides lasting improvement, that is a different conversation. Your skin's moisture level is not only regulated from the outside, it is also regulated from the inside through a network of autonomic nerves that control the sweat glands in your feet. These nerves run your sweat glands without any input from you, maintaining the skin's natural moisture balance continuously. When blood sugar has been elevated for a significant period of time, these autonomic nerves sustain damage. The sweat glands they control stop functioning properly. The skin of the feet loses its internal source of moisture. It dries from the inside out, and no amount of external lotion corrects a problem that originates in the nerve tissue beneath the skin. Think of a self-watering plant pot. Underneath the soil, there is a reservoir that keeps moisture coming up from below, regardless of what the weather does above. When the nerves are damaged, the reservoir stops delivering. The surface dries no matter how much water you pour on top from outside. And cracked heels are not just a cosmetic issue. Deep fissures in the skin are entry points for bacteria. Moisturize your feet every single night before bed. A good fragrance-free lotion or pure coconut oil applied thoroughly to the sole and heel, but never apply it between the toes. Trapped moisture in that space encourages fungal infection. The sixth sign gets explained away as age, as weather, as bad circulation that runs in the family. Cold feet. But not the kind of cold feet everyone gets on a winter morning. Cold feet that persist regardless of the temperature around them. Cold in the middle of summer. Cold under layers of blankets. Cold even when the rest of the body feels completely warm. I hear the same joke from almost every patient I ask about this. I have always had cold feet, and I smile. But then I ask, are your feet cold in July? Are they cold in bed under covers when the rest of your body is sweating? Because that is not a personality trait. That is a blood supply problem. The small arteries that carry warm, oxygenated blood to the feet are among the most vulnerable vessels when it comes to damage from sustained high blood sugar. Glucose at chronically elevated levels damages the inner lining of blood vessel walls. The vessels thicken and stiffen. Their interior diameter narrows. The volume of blood that can pass through them with each heartbeat decreases. Less blood reaching the feet means less warmth, less oxygen, less of everything the tissue needs. Think of your blood vessels as the pipes in a heating system. Warm water flows through those pipes and radiates heat into every room. When the pipes narrow, the warm water still flows, but in reduced volume, and the room at the end of the furthest pipe stays cold no matter how hard the furnace runs. Your feet are that room. A 30-minute brisk walk every single day is the most powerful daily habit for this sign. Arms moving, purposeful pace. Enough effort that you feel your heart rate lift. Start with 10 minutes if 30 is too much right now. What matters is starting today. The seventh sign is the one that sends the most people down the wrong path for the longest time. Sharp, stabbing, sometimes electric pain in the feet. Pain that comes on suddenly, with no injury to explain it. Pain that most people file under old sports injuries, arthritis, or the general category of getting older. Ibuprofen. That is what most of my patients have been taking by the time this comes up in conversation. Months of ibuprofen, providing partial relief, masking the signal long enough that the real source is never investigated. Nerve damage from high blood sugar does not always produce numbness. In many cases, it produces the opposite. The damaged nerves become hyperactive, erratic, misfiring, sending intense pain signals to the brain at random without any physical injury triggering them. The pain is completely genuine. It is not imagined, but its source is not a torn tendon or an arthritic joint. It is a nerve that has been damaged by years of glucose exposure and is now generating distress signals on its own. Think of a car alarm that was damaged in a minor collision. The car is fine. Nobody is breaking in. But the sensor was jarred and now it fires randomly at 2 in the morning for no external reason. The alarm is real. The sound is real. But the cause is internal damage, not external threat. and taking ibuprofen does not repair a sensor. It just makes the alarm slightly quieter while the damage underneath continues. Every morning before getting out of bed, spend 5 minutes on gentle foot and ankle movement. Flex the feet up and down, circle the ankles slowly, pull the toes gently back toward the shin and hold briefly. And every evening before sleep, a gentle 3-minute massage along the sole and up the ankle. This is not a cure, but it is meaningful, consistent care for tissue that is under stress. The 8th sign tells me, when I see it, that this has been going on for some time. Changes in the nails of the toes, nails that have become thickened, discolored, yellowed or brownish, brittle, or that have developed a texture different from what they used to be. Nails that are harder to cut, that crumble at the edges, or that have separated slightly from the nail bed. Fungal infection. That is the diagnosis most people have already given themselves. And fungal infections of the toenail are genuinely common. But there is a reason people with elevated blood sugar are significantly more prone to toenail fungal infections, and why those infections are harder to treat. The underlying condition creates the environment in which the infection thrives. High blood sugar creates 2 separate problems that converge at the toenail. First, elevated glucose in the tissues provides an ideal nutrient environment for fungal organisms. They thrive in glucose-rich tissue. Second, compromised circulation means the immune cells that would normally respond to fungal invasion are arriving in reduced numbers with reduced efficiency. The nail is being attacked in an environment that favors the attacker and handicaps the defense. Think of the nail bed like a garden. Healthy soil, good irrigation, regular nutrients. The plants grow normally. Cut the irrigation and contaminate the soil, and what grows looks completely different. Thicker, discolored, irregular. That is what chronically poor circulation and elevated blood sugar do to the nail bed over time. Once a week, after a bath or shower when the nails are soft and visible, look at every toenail on both feet. Note any changes in thickness, color, or texture. Keep a simple log on your phone with the date. If you notice progressive change over 4 to 6 weeks, bring that log to your doctor. That documented progression is valuable clinical information. The 9th sign is the one I find myself bringing up most often because patients almost never bring it up themselves. It is visible. It has been there for a long time in many cases, and it requires no equipment whatsoever to check. It is simply the absence of something that should be there. Hair on the lower legs and the tops of the feet. Or rather, the gradual disappearance of it. Most people have never thought about the hair on their lower legs as a health indicator. It grows. It is there. It has always been there. And then, so slowly that nobody marks the day it changed, it starts to thin. The tops of the feet go smooth. The lower legs thin out. The skin in those areas becomes unusually bare compared to the rest of the leg above the knee. Hair follicles are among the most metabolically demanding structures in the skin. They require a constant, adequate supply of oxygenated blood and nutrients to sustain active hair production. When blood vessel damage from chronic high blood sugar progressively reduces the circulation reaching the lower legs and feet, the follicles in those areas begin to receive less than what they need. They do not die suddenly. They simply slow down and eventually stop producing hair because the supply line has been too compromised for too long. Think of it as a manufacturing facility slowly receiving less raw material. The factory does not shut down overnight. Output reduces gradually. One production line goes quiet, then another. Eventually, the floor is still and empty, not because the factory was destroyed, but because it was starved of resources over a long period of time. The bare skin on the lower leg and the top of the foot is that quiet factory floor. Right now, after this video ends, look at your lower legs and the tops of your feet. Compare the hair density there to the hair on the upper part of your leg, above the knee. If the difference is striking, if the lower leg and foot are significantly thinner or completely bare, schedule a fasting blood glucose test this week, not this month. This week. It is a simple blood draw, and the information it gives you is worth everything. 9 signs. 9 things that have been living on millions of feet, being looked at every single day, and never understood for what they are. Tingling or numbness without a clear positional cause, burning in the soles at night, a wound that will not close, discoloration around the ankles, severe cracking in the heels that lotion never fully fixes, feet that stay cold regardless of the temperature, sharp or stabbing pain with no injury to explain it, thickened, discolored toenails, and the quiet disappearance of hair from the lower legs and feet. Any one of these is a reason to talk to your doctor, not to panic, not to assume the worst. But to make a phone call, ask for a fasting glucose test and find out what your numbers actually say. Because the difference between catching elevated blood sugar early and catching it late is measured not just in lab values, but in the quality and the independence of the years ahead of you. Tonight, before you go to bed, sit down in good light and look at your feet. Both of them, top and bottom, between the toes, the heels, 30 seconds. That is all it takes. And if anything on this list is looking back at you, call your doctor tomorrow morning. You have earned the life you have. The mornings, the ability to move through your day on your own terms. Do not let something as detectable and as manageable as blood sugar quietly take any of that from you simply because the warning signs were never explained to you. Now they have been.